Thank you everyone for being here and coming to hear us today. It's really an honor to be here. We're here to inspire you to become entrepreneurs. But in reality, I don't really feel like an entrepreneur. I ended up being on this chair a lot by accidents that happened in my life that made it to the point where I met my other two co-founders through a random connection that I didn't know them at all. I was introduced to them through a friend who works for another company that my co-founder created 5 years before we started Eventbrite. So I never had that, like Rahul, this passion for creating a business, and that's not really what I'm about. What I always wanted to do is build things. I think that's what an engineer by definition is. It's someone who likes to build things. So even when I was younger, I would start building castles and train tracks and all the things that you do as a young kid. If you're a guy, I guess. If you're a girl, you do other things. But that's always what was driving me, is to create products that people were using. So in the early days of my career, I knew I wanted to travel a lot. So I said, well, I'm going to be a civil engineer and I'm going to go all over the world, build towers, build bridges, build tunnels. And I followed that path for a while and went to school, went to university, studied that for until I got my master's. Then I moved from France to America. I found a job as an environmental consultant, and I was cleaning up big polluted sites, so companies that spend years and years letting all their pollutants go in the ground, and we would go in and clean everything up. It was very rewarding, very challenging as well. It was very big projects running for years. I did that for 5 years, and it was during the days where the web started evolving and becoming a lot more mainstream. I think something that entrepreneurs share is this ideas. It's the vision of the world that they constantly follow. The world that you live in today is not the world that you will live in 5 years from now. And I think a common trait between all the entrepreneurs is to be curious about the world that we live in, to see what's changing, how it's changing. I mean, my generation and yours is completely different. For you, a smartphone is something you've always used. Color TV is something you've always had. It wasn't the case. I had a black and white TV when I was younger. There were no phones, no mobile phones. You had landlines. So everything is changing, and it's changing fast. And what entrepreneurs do is identify these changes and find a way to fit in within these changes and affect these changes. So when the web came about, I was really amazed that the few lines of code that I was writing could be in an instant accessible by millions of people everywhere. So I started building things on my own. I built the largest index of nature photographers. My father was a nature photographer, and I love nature photography, so I started building this index. And soon after, a lot of photographers were putting their listing there and putting their images, and I was getting a lot of traffic, and it was very exciting that writing a few lines of code, pushing them out there, everybody was using them. That was incredible. So I decided to change careers in 2000. I was living in San Francisco, which was the mecca of the dot-com era. There were all these companies being created out of thin air and becoming instant successes with millions of users, millions of investments from different funds. They were exiting on the stock market for billions of dollars. It really felt like that's where the future was going. And I think I was right. It was the right decision for me at the time. So I took a job as a low-level developer for this photo sharing company. Photo sharing was very new at the time. The cameras that existed there were no phones with cameras. There were 3-megapixel cameras coming from a few manufacturers, but they were very few and far between. I think we started almost too early and were too forward-thinking in identifying that photo sharing was going to become something big that everybody would be using every day. The technology itself was in a different state at the time than it is now. I think now you have so much potential. The costs have come down tremendously. What used to take millions of dollars buying storage to store all these photos now costs dollars or cents even. So that's a real advantage that you have today. It's this availability of very cheap computing power. And if you're into technology, that's a great chance. Pretty much anyone, there's all these frameworks out there that exist to build products as well. So you have this combination of things that have evolved over the 10 years that or 12 years that I've been in the business that make it an incredible moment for you to take the ideas and your vision of the world. Something that you need to do is keep track of what's going on in the world and what's changing. Facebook didn't exist when we had that photo sharing site. It helped us tremendously at Eventbrite to start at the right time, and there's always a right time for any given type of companies. I think Amazon started at the right time. They were the first company to do e-commerce well online, and now they probably will become the biggest retailer in the world at some point. So there's always a right time for the right company to come with the right people. And you never know when that is. You'll know 5 years down the road. In 2006, when I met my other two co-founders through my friend, I didn't really know if we were onto something. And the idea sounded good. There were nothing in the market that did exactly what we did. So it felt like there was something there, but we all did take a chance. We said, oh yes, let's try to work together. We're going to build this product and see what happens. And 6 years later, now we have 200 employees. We have an office in London now. We have people using us in 175 countries. I didn't know there were so many, but they are. And you don't really plan this. I mean, it happens. You can affect it. You can do the best you can to build the best product out there. But in reality, it means that when you're hitting that kind of popularity, it means that you found the right niche and you took the right approach to address that niche. And that's something you have to adapt with. Like being a 200-person company is very different from being a 3-person company. You have a lot more power, a lot more decisions to make when it's just 3 of you and you have to decide what color you're going to use for the logo and what name you're going to give your company, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I feel is really interesting in being an entrepreneur. It's that freedom, that responsibility that comes with the freedom. It's hard work, as Raoul mentioned. You've got to be really into it and wanting to dedicate all your time really into building something. But the reward is that now I meet people everywhere and they tell me they're users of our product. I've never met these people. They've never heard of me almost, but they're actually using it and are happy customers. So that's always the best reward you can get, is for millions of people out there to be using your product. And even they don't tell you that they like it, they're actually using it every day. So that's, I think, the fulfilling part in the whole entrepreneurship process, is that reward at the end when you get the validation that what you thought about at some point was a crazy idea actually works and becomes a real company that creates jobs for people. So yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.